In World War II, millions died because of bombs, tanks, and battles. But one decision, made in silence, ended up controlling the world long after the shooting stopped. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a battle. It was a line drawn on a map. A decision made by men who believed the war was ending but were actually shaping the next century. That single choice decided who would rule Eastern Europe, who would control half of Germany, and why the world would soon be divided into two opposing sides. This is the World War II decision that never truly ended. In early 1945, Germany was collapsing. Allied armies were pushing in from the west. Soviet forces were advancing from the east. The question was no longer how to defeat Hitler. The question was who would control Europe after he fell. At conferences in Yalta and Potsdam, Allied leaders made a quiet decision. They allowed the Red Army to keep the territory it had already occupied. Eastern Europe would remain under Soviet control. It was meant to prevent another war, but it planted the seeds of a new one. Almost overnight, Europe was divided. Germany was split in two. Berlin was cut into sectors surrounded by Soviet-controlled land. Countries like Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia were promised free elections. Those elections never truly came. Instead, governments loyal to Moscow took power. What began as a temporary arrangement turned into permanent control. The Iron Curtain had fallen, not by force, but by agreement. That single decision reshaped the world. It triggered the Cold War, nuclear standoffs, proxy wars across Asia and the Middle East, NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Two superpowers locked in a global struggle that lasted for decades. Even today, borders, alliances, and tensions trace back to that moment in 1945. The war ended on paper, but in reality, it simply changed form. World War II is often remembered as a battle between good and evil. But history is shaped just as much by quiet decisions made after the fighting stops. One line on a map created a divided world that we are still living in today. If you want more stories about the hidden decisions behind history, consider subscribing.